He's crafting seamless, user-friendly tech that's changing the game with a mustache as magnificent as his mind. Every follicle attuned to the frequency of innovation. His business development skills are so sharp they could cut through a blockchain, making complex concepts simple and onboarding easier than ever before. It's the mustached maestro, the secret of Stardust. It's Andy Adams.
I'm in a closet kitchen. I'm at the
All right, Andy's in shambles. I think he's getting here in a minute.
whole time.
Godspeed, my friend. We'll see you soon.
Bro, you're fully digitized, bro. Total machine.
He's currently putting himself on chain. That's how impressive his mustache is. Up next, from the land down under where kangaroos and koalas bow in his presence, he started his journey in the highest stakes VC world, diving headfirst into the crypto's cosmos, and now landing at Wilder World, where partnerships are his playground. Once a hardcore semi-pro gamer, he's traded virtual battles for real-world blockchain victories. He's the Aussie ace of the Web3 race, the head honcho of holographic hustle. It's Zen Wilder.
Yo, what's good? What an introduction. I'm honored. I don't even know what to say, man. So good to be here, Sam. So good to be here with everyone in the house here. Thank you so much for having me. Very excited to kick things off this week here at Austin. Lots of stuff happening. Biggest gaming event from us as well. We have a racing tournament going live. So really happy. It's a big week for all the Wilders, and happy to be here. Thank you.
The vibes are impeccable. Thanks for making the trip over to be here in real life with us, man. Appreciate you. Up next, with a portfolio packed with projects, this multi-time founder is fired up. 5 NFT collections on Farcaster, each selling out quicker than you could say gas fee. Now he's building Farcade, a fantastical and functional arcade inside of the social media platform Farcaster. It's the father of Farcade, the social shapeshifter. Is Charlie Blackstock.
What's up, brother? I'm going to keep doing that forever. Super pumped to be here, bud.
Tuesday. And with the fervor of a gaming gladiator and the grace of a digital diva, she amassed an empire of 200,000 spellbound spectators. Using her influence as an ambassador for Parallel, she's the loudest voice shouting from the digital rooftops and soapboxes, reminding us of Parallel's profound place in the Web3 ecosystem. As the co-founder of Alchemy, the solution behind Shrapnel's new Discord game, The Lunatics, she's transitioned from mere player to puppeteer, building realms and bending realities. Welcome to the panel, the titan of Twitch, the alchemical queen, the goddess of gaming. It's Ali Straza. So eloquent, well said. Couldn't have said it better myself. Appreciate you, Ali. What a star. What a star. It's amazing to have you. Knock, knock, who's there? It's the king of charisma, the baron of bravado, making you knock on wood just to keep up. He's a spellbinding speaker and a phenomenal friend, perpetually knocking it out of the park on these panels. He's the marketplace magician with Magic Eden, transforming trades into treasures that'll knock your socks off. Brace yourselves for the dynamo of digital deals, the sultan of swaps, the emperor of esport, the maven of Magic Eden. It's Knock.
Love it, Sam. And I was just knocking on his door. I had to go bother him live in person. It's not too often we've got that opportunity. We're trying to spread out. Hopefully you can hear me okay, and I'm not a robot like a couple other people were, but this will be a fun one.
Andy's down bad for that, but you sound great, Knock. And yeah, anybody who's coming in as might be expected whenever you get 20 tech forward influencers, KOLs, founders, etc. In one place, they are killing this Airbnb Wi-Fi like fucking Bugs Bunny going hunting. So up next, get off the Wi-Fi. Buckle up for a high-speed ride into the future with the man who leaped from the safety of Web 2 into the electrifying unknown of Web 3. He's a revolution on 4 legs, a trailblazer in the terra of tech. He's so good at Dump, Date, and Marry that I've heard he's being recruited by Tinder, Grindr, and Christian Mingle. I had to keep that one in. It still makes me laugh. Representing the ETH Lizards, this is the digital dynamo who's rewriting the rules of gaming infrastructure. Welcome back to the panel. It's the champion of choice, the CEO. It's Animositas.
Thanks, Sam. That one makes me laugh too. Look, I have a front row seat to the future of industry right here. I'm watching Peyton trade meme coins in a way that is making BlackRock 100% scared to enter the entire sector. You thought they were launching on Ethereum. He's going to run them out right here. If that doesn't work, we're all going to be broke and we're out of the shrapnel house in an hour. So let's go, boys.
Peyton's either going to own half of downtown Austin or be completely bankrupt by the end of this show. So stay tuned to find out which way that falls. And next, in a world cluttered with conformity, he strides forth with a blunt blade of honesty, slicing through the pretenses with controversial takes. A hero to some, a herald of havoc to others, he wields words like a warrior, unafraid to cut to the heart of the matter. Ladies and gentlemen, gather round as we summon from the mists of a myth, of a legend, a figure both revered and feared, the enigmatic, the elusive titan of taboo, from my angry Yakuza girlfriend, tuning in from the middle of the night in Asia. It's Injin.
Hey Sam, it's the highlight of my week where I get to like feast on some peons. So yeah, we're missing some other speakers here. I would have loved to have feasted on their souls today, but we'll see if they show up.
Paul Bettner currently stuck in traffic. We'll see if he's able to make it anytime soon. And then Koji had to bail because he has a private top secret something parallel's gonna launch a blah blah blah. I can't talk about it. Sorry guys. From 360s on the slopes of 360 no scopes, he's the supreme head of community and partnerships at Shrapnel, the ultimate enforcer of engagement. Once the strategist steering the sporting goods division of a $14 billion empire, he's now the iron-willed warrior navigating the perilous paths of Web3 with Shrapnel. And he also, some reason, plays parallel like 8 hours a day. He's the sharpshooter of Shrapnel, the undisputed king of controllers. The redemption arc continues with Dub.
Damn right, boy. You better hide your meme coins because this little ninja warrior just got trained by the baddest sensei in the game. His name is Orangey, and I've been let loose onto the chart, so you better watch yourself before you get wrecked yourself. You know what I mean? Great to be here, Sam. I love you.
God bless. I love you too. Good luck out there, guys. Don't risk it all, okay? DYOR, not financial advice. We'll get away from the meme coins eventually. And at the helm of the Wolves now, he's woven a web of inclusive exclusivity, creating a haven for like-minded visionaries. Capped at 300 members with no way to buy your way in, a truly unique way. It's truly a unique place to be inside of Web3 gaming. He's a godlike member of the Shrapnel team, in addition to being the benevolent mentor, ever eager to enlighten every member of his pack. Welcome back to the panelist, the patron of pooches, the curator of canines. It's Peyton Okalanika Povainu Ikalevahea. All right, he's down bad on some meme coins. He would be responding to that if he.
Well, that setup is not working now, eh? Peyton, you did sound sexy, but now it's not working.
I also.
Yo, let's freaking go! I also just got told by Orangey about Photon Soul.
Yikes. Somebody told me they thought whenever I did Peyton's last name that I was literally just making up gibberish. They were like, how do you think of what to say every time? I was like, that's his real last name. That's actually the whole thing. And they were like, no way, bro. I thought you were being racist. I was like, no, it's really his government name. And last but not least, weighing in at just 2.4 pounds, he's the small-scale scholar, a little lizard legend leaping from ledger to ledger. Brace yourselves for the dynamo of diction, the tongue-twitching titan of topics. It's my co-host, Lems.
GM, everyone. I will say I didn't really have FOMO for some of the other recent conferences. I was still like kind of tired from GDC, but I will say I got some FOMO from Consensus right now. Sounds like you all are having a really good time down there.
We love you, buddy. Did wish that you could have made it out, but life goes on. You'll only be dead to me until GDC next year. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. And everybody that's given us a retweet, dropping in the comments, etc., as usual, appreciate you tremendously. If you could do that and help us out to make sure everybody gets educated on Gamified. We'll stop screaming about meme coins and start chiming in on these topics. But first, let's salute and celebrate the sublime, the spectacular, the sovereign, the supreme substrate of our stellar saga, the official blockchain of Gamified. It's Avalanche. With its spectacular speed and scalability, skillfully simplifying the sophisticated science of subnets, allowing avant-garde architects and game gurus to craft their cutting-edge creations. It stands as a steadfast sentinel in the storm, driving the dawn of a decentralized gaming with a dynamic, durable, and decidedly different approach, and built on Avalanche. You know it, Shrapnel, a marvel of mayhem meticulously manifested that isn't just redefining the rules of the FPS arena, it's an extraction shooter that's tearing through the terrain of traditional gaming. Fresh off the back of a successful STX 3.0, they're here at Consensus launching the beta version of their Discord game, The Lunatics, which is a gateway to prizes when paired with their token Shrap. or an operator. So if you're ready to dive into a domain where your daring deeds are duly rewarded, enlist today, earn metal, quest with Moku, and have your strategies stretch beyond the screen. Special thank you to Shrapnel for being the official game of Gamified, which is powered by Stardust, baby. Stardust is lighting the way with its wallet as a service, offering a marvel of modern technology that melts away the mayhem of managing digital assets, making every user's experience as smooth as silk. This isn't just convenience, it's revolution, redefining the user experience of your game with the touch of a button. This is where projects pivot from potential to powerhouse. So thank you to Stardust for being the official infrastructure of Gamified. We're jumping in first, Chad or Chump. Giulio on MON's token launch. MON, of course, behind MON Protocol, Pixel MON, etc., launched at a pretty moderate, fully diluted value compared with other recent launches. Some people were saying they were expecting $2 billion. It was more close to the 500 million mark. Giulio mentioned a few reasons why. He said he wanted to offer people an entry that was attractive and people were excited to put bids in. He thinks the fastest sellers will just sell at whatever FTV, so it might as well start low, get them shaken out, and work with those core contributors, those people that he really wants to build the ecosystem around. He says price should be high because the market thinks it should be, not because of its ego. He's essentially targeting the FTV that's low when compared to where the market will send it. He had an amazing tweet too that had me dying. He said, "Sell" in all caps. Don't stake, sell. This is not TGE. This is a cleanse. Stake to 10 billion or sell. Create good entries. I want short termers and the Jeters out now. So my question for the panel is, Giulio a Chad or a Chump for this point of view? Sinjin, tagging you in first, big dog.
You know, him and his team are definitely Chads. I mean, not only did they have a great turnaround and stuff like that, they know what the stakes are. And then the biggest difference, I think, with other teams is that they are very well funded. And they had negotiated, the turnaround and takeover of that particular project. And so they have a very long-term vision, and also, they're set up with the MON protocol and getting certain partners on and stuff like this. They really understand the space, but they understand it without the desperation of a lot of other projects where they need to fundraise, they need to get the attention, they need to, get the money here and now. So I think it's a really good standard that they're setting, an example for the space.
Great stuff. I knew you'd have an opinion on that one, Sinjin. Let's go to Lambs, then to Animositas.
This one's definitely a Chad move. Like, I was actually worried they would start at a really high FDV because people were posting things like, "Oh, Pixelmon to like 5 billion," and I'm like, "Is it going to start at some crazy high thing?" But we've seen so many charts that are just down and to the right, like just red for everyone, and everyone who comes in at launch just gets wrecked. It's great, and we've seen a lot of criticism on crypto Twitter recently about it. I wonder if this was a recent move they decided based on all the negative sentiment around high FDV launches recently, or if they'd always had this in the works, because this makes more sense when you want your community to be a part and get a part of that upside, and they become more entrenched in your ecosystem. They've always been pretty community focused since they took over, so I wouldn't be surprised if this was in the plan all along. But by letting your community get in early, they get part of the upside, they actually become better fans, and they're the loudest fans you'll have, and they'll market for you.
Well said, Lems. Animositas, tagging you in, big dog.
Shit, I'm just going to change my name to Lem's Nose. He just took all my thunder here. Look, this point around the community being able to share in the upside is 100% the core miss that many teams have had this cycle. If you don't have people that feel like they are part of your success, they will be glad to go elsewhere and help contribute to someone else's success. As a founder, if you are taking the last dollar off of the table in any round, you are making a mistake. Leave some there for other people. The network effects in Web3 are absolutely real, and this is 100% a Chad move.
Knock, any final words on this one before we move on, brother?
Yeah, I mean, definitely a Chad move. This is the team who absorbed a game that everybody on this panel clowned for like a year and a half. They were obviously a very patient team and have no problem building things the right way. And they think the right way is going in at an attractive FDV, allow people to sort of accumulate or become part of this ecosystem, and then show something through the products that they're building to back up these absurd prices that we've been seeing for some of these other teams at TGE. They've always moved slow. They've always been very deliberate deliberate in the way that they've approached things. So to me, this is just like true to their nature. It's an absolute Chad move. I've been saying it for a year and a half. I'll continue to say it. Hopefully, these buffoons on the panel will start listening to me.
Fuck, I knew you were gonna bring that up, Knock. I heard you on Simplified just tooting your horn, motherfucker. You know, I'll tell you, like, you see it for what it is, and I don't have like blind hope and whatever that comes along, and I don't really research all the projects as much as you do. But like, was it a clown project? Absolutely. Did they save it? Absolutely. I'll give kudos there. But you know, Knock, your blind faith is gonna like fucking turn on you one day, brother. I'll be there to fucking rub it in though.
Yeah, we got to start keeping negative receipts on Knock too. If he's gonna keep going back to the logger, I'm gonna keep bringing up heavy metal until his ego deflates back down. Over to Peyton.
Yeah, man. You always only tweet about your wins. Knock knows. No, I think there's a definitely a Chad move, and I also think like the Chad move too for MON protocol is that it almost has as powerful as a name of like Pixelmon, which helps with the name. But like MON protocol now has the ability to also have like a massive treasury. They've done a whole bunch of token swaps. They fill a gap, which is currently like the centralized exchanges like wanting vanity metrics. Like they have it with farmers. Like it's such a very methodical way that he made MON protocol. So definitely a Chad team. What they've done with the foundation, what they have in their treasury. Like I think they have 60 over projects or so, and the market cap that it currently sits at definitely has room to grow, especially as like all these projects start releasing their token, and it's to the people that are staking their MON. So can't wait, man. Chad.
Some great comments already. Jack C says projects have like a 3-month lifespan, so Mon is going to change that. Probably not. Sinjin isn't wrong. Icy says the turnaround from Pixelmon is legendary, so kudos to them. He said, plus I met Kevin last night, so I'm a fan. I will say it's crazy. We went from like a year and a half ago. I was like, Kevin is a pox on this entire industry, and they really did change it to make me feel like Kevin is actually like a bullish signal. Like I'm excited whenever I see them. I like the way that they're doing the branding. I like that they leaned into the meme. I love that they've just kind of used it as a symbol to be like, remember where we came from, not like we actually believed that this is still a positive face of Web3 because it kind of is morphed into. Anyway, I digress. Sinjin, over to you.
Yeah, you know why I want to call them also fucking mega chads is because if you see where they've listed on all these fantastic exchanges except for Binance, and I'm not going to say definitively what's that about, just because I don't know if it's my place too. But the fact of the matter is, could they have? Absolutely. Did they choose not to? But I think it goes to show why they're mega chads is because they chose to be strategic, and that was part of their it wasn't part of their plan not to list on Binance per se, but they were not going to have that interfere with where they were looking for. So I think they definitely made the mega the really optimal choice, and that makes them mega chats because they could have, but they chose the long term and what was healthy for them overall in their strategy. So again, kudos to that team.
Charlie Blackstock, your thoughts?
Yo, can you hear me all right, Sam?
Yeah, you sound good, bro.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I guess I think I just maybe have like a little bit of a higher bar or something. Like it's weird how much love they're getting for this. I feel like I don't know. I mean, the team raised $70 million 3 years ago. I still don't know like how much of substance has really been launched. Like it's just like a lot of marketing and hype, and like now a new coin that like is really just used for social farming. I don't really see a ton of substance. I see a lot of teams in this space building and shipping pretty incredible products with orders of magnitude less cash and orders of magnitude less time. And so I don't know. I think it's the Chad move to like not give a fuck about what people are going to say about your token, but at some point, like I do hold them to a pretty high standard, and I don't feel like I've really seen a lot of value actually get created. There's just more tokens, more NFTs, and not a lot of substance in my eyes.
I do think that's fair. Excited to see if anybody has a rebuttal for that. The one thing I will say is I know that there's a couple of different games coming, and the Warriors of Narratova, or whatever, however you say that, looks so rad. As somebody that loves roguelike games, I think it's a really interesting twist on kind of the creature collector plus roguelike experiences. So I think that they have the potential to rectify kind of what you're saying, but you do make some great points about their sort of positional advantage and maybe their lack of actual delivery so far. Sinjin has the hand back up.
Yeah, I've actually met the team. I've gone out for brunch with Chris out here in Singapore. I'll say this: they understand the game. Like they actually really do understand the game, and they're very competent at the game, the Web3 attention game. And they are definitely playing that. On the same side, they were an established game studio already. I don't know how established, to tell you the truth, but speaking with Chris, he's no dummy. He's quite articulate, but he's very down to earth, very reasonable, and games take a long time. And so I think they're doing their very best at actually prioritizing what they need to at first, and to keep the attention and the turnaround going. And they, had done that one like very social game that I kind of really poo-pooed. But in terms of product wise, what was that the best release ever? No, I think it was like a Flappy Bird ripoff or something, if I remember. But in terms of like positioning themselves for what they needed to do to get to this point, absolutely. Are they not working on the product? I don't think so. I think they absolutely are. They're doing it in parallel, and I think this is one of the few teams which has a very good balance of doing it both. But for this particular launch, like make no mistake about it, it wasn't about the product per se. It was about the attention and the framework that they were setting up.
Let's go to Zen from Wilder World.
Yeah, I just wanted to extend on that because the way that we see that is it's kind of like you almost have two products, right? You have the whole token side of things, the whole Web3 side of things, like the marketing, the attention economy within Web3, and then you have your actual product, might be infrastructure, software, or gaming, or whatever it is. And we really see it as two separate things. And when we understand what the objectives are, what do you want to achieve? Like within the Web3 gaming space, make no mistake, most people that are farming right now, they are simply interested in making money. That's the majority of people that will jump on these campaigns, that'll create the core community in the current attention economy Web3 space, I'd say. But when we talk about mainstream adoption or something, that the big moment for us will come in the next 12 to 24 months, hopefully. It's not with that you will retain the people. It's not with that you will retain the traditional people coming into the space, but it will be with the product. So, and I think this is something that we just need to keep in mind. It's like, yeah, playing the game, playing the Web3 marketing game, that's great. You get a lot of attention, you get your capital that you need, you boost your numbers, your community numbers, but then, how consistent is it? How persistent will it be once we enter back into retail phase, once we go back into the mainstream phase? And I think this is something that, yeah, I believe that lots of projects in our space that are being hyped right now, they won't be able to make it in the long term unless they significantly change or pivot the way that they ship their products, or actually invest more resources and energy in actually building these products. So it's kudos for doing that. It's an art form in itself to play the Web3 game, definitely. But yeah, the question always for me, I'm always thinking, it's like, how do we create long-term value when the normies, in quote unquote, coming in? How do we keep them? Because they might not be as interested in these things as we think. So just want to chime in here.
Yeah, great points, brother. Appreciate that. I also see we pinned up that the Wheels Arcade is going down at at Consensus Austin with Wilder World on Friday night. If anybody is in town and wants some more information on that, make sure you check out the pinned tweet. We're moving on. What's the word for game leaks? This is an issue, I guess, for Valve in particular right now. Their game Deadlock had private footage leaked, and it was all over Reddit. Some believe this was an intentional leak or hack from controls in private servers to gauge sentiment on the game without public communications. We also, not too long ago, had the fake GTA 6 trailer that was released days before the actual trailer, and it was incredibly high quality, so it kind of seems like a marketing stunt there. There were some quotes from Reddit saying they clearly don't care about leaks, or they wouldn't have had it so open. It's likely that it's soon to be announced anyway. And then somebody else said it's so obvious that they're gathering impressions from the public with this, which will also influence how and if the project moves forward as is. My personal opinion on those those sentiments in particular is, if you saw some of the first clips that were released, you would not think this one was a leak because it looked like absolute dog shit. It looked terrible. So if they were going to pick any clips, they would not have picked that one, in my humble opinion. I'm also curious from the founder perspectives, what your feeling is if you have your game leaked, and what in particular you think about the first impressions made off of them. Because again, whenever I first saw it, I was like, this is a Valve game? This looks like a 3 out of 10. So it's a little bit brutal if that's my first impression of the game, and obviously it was not your intention. I think also about music and how some people have their music leaked, but it's not the mixed and mastered version. It doesn't have the feature. It isn't cut quite right or whatever. And then people maybe don't end up wanting to listen to the music whenever it actually comes out. I'm sending it over to Dub from Shrapnel first.
Yeah, I've actually had this happen before with a sporting goods product that I was working on. We had a big marketing lineup leading into it. Unfortunately, one of the pro writers that we're using as a to get initial content about it posted about it, and it kind of like went viral. People went after it, and for us, it was more of a like fuck it, we ball kind of moment where it was like, okay, the world knows like all our plans, we need to accelerate, capture the moment, capture the hype because we have it right now regardless of the situation and how we feel about it, and you just got to go and execute. And I think that's just how it is with gaming as well. Like, as long as it's being positively received out there in the world, like, you just need to kickstart all your marketing plans and just roll with it, because otherwise you're never going to catch that right again. Otherwise, like, if you can make like a troll of it in the future or something like that, like, it's just like, this is a key marketing moment that you need to just adjust your plans to accordingly.
Great point. Dub says, roll with it. Knock, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is the cost of doing business, right? If you're going to put together a play test of everything I'm about to say is a hypothetical situation, all right? But hypothetically, if you were to put together a group of, say, 2,000 or 3,000 people in something like, I don't know, a Discord, and you would run play test every weeknight and a couple nights on the weekend, and you brought in a bunch of esports athletes and content creators, this is the sort of thing that is inevitably going to happen because people want to show this content. They want to be first to market with the new thing from Valve. By way of like, does it look good enough to be a Valve game? I mean, everybody clowned on TF2 when that first got leaked and people thought it looked like shit. I mean, hate to break it, but Counter-Strike Go looks terrible to this day. So I don't think that the way that the game looks is an indicator of whether or not it's going to be successful. Again, hypothetically, if I were to have been playing it every night for the last couple of weeks, I would hypothetically say it's a ton of fun and it's a really well put together game. Hypothetically, of course. If they were potentially bringing in some esports creators, they would probably be saying the same thing. I think it's Valve. They're going to deliver a game that makes a ton of sense. It's a couple of genres that people are very familiar with. They know how to play it. It's a pretty intuitive game, I would imagine, of course. So yeah, I think that this is just the cost of doing business. When you have this many people have access to a build at this stage, you're going to have leaks. They know that that's a thing. There's not really doing anything to stop it. It's like a simple message that just says, please don't share this publicly. Like, that's not going to stop anybody. But I think that, yeah, maybe they are gauging intention here, but it's a good game. It's going to be a good game, and everybody clowning it now is going to be addicted to it when it comes out. So I don't really think that this is a big deal.
I hypothetically agree with what you're hypothetically saying, because I hypothetically think that you might be leading me on into thinking that you hypothetically have more access than you're saying. I'm hypothetically sending it over to Animositas now.
Hypothetically speaking, I think we should never forget Hamon's razor. For those that don't know it, never ascribe to malice that which could be attributed to stupidity. Case in point, our dear leader Peyton is outside and he managed to leave his computer unlocked. You could attribute to malice the fact that I just dumped 1 million of the fuck me token on the market from him, or the fact that he just forgot to close his laptop down. This is true in real life, just like it is at the Shrap House. Boys, make sure that you don't ascribe to projects negative intentions if it's much more likely that somebody just did something stupid along the way. I think this is probably the case, particularly, Sam, given your point that the actual leak itself probably doesn't help the company out. I'm much more open to that concept if it's something that they legitimately would want to gather sentiments on. This is probably just somebody who got access and felt like they could share something that they shouldn't have.
Wow, hypothetically, Animositas is now a meme coin market maker, so that's an interesting development. Lems, over to you.
I think it's quite interesting, and I wonder if teams do think about using this as like marketing sometimes. Because in this case specifically, like we've seen other cases where it was definitely a leak. In this case, it seems like there was very, very loose guidelines on it, where there was no NDA signed or anything. It was just like, join this Discord and you can come and play this game, and people could just take footage and do whatever they want with it. I don't think the team was like intentionally leaking any of this footage. I think it was just creators, people being like, hey, there's no real restrictions from this. Like, I'm not going to get in, any shit for it. I'm not going to violate an NDA or anything. So why not? We'll just put it out there. And then Valve probably capitalizes on that and getting a little bit of general sentiment and just on what the market thinks of it. So I think they just kind of are turning a blind eye to it and then taking what they can from it. And they're just making the most out of that opportunity. Some gamers will just hunt for leaks, right? It depends. Like, you have crazy Blizzard fans, you have crazy Valve fans. They'll just hunt for anything. So they would expect that something like this would happen if they're not signing NDAs.
Well, hypothetically, if anybody could get me access to this game, I would hypothetically be interested in that. Ali Estraza is the founder of Alchemy. I'm curious how you would feel if a leak happened here.
Oh man, I mean, I just feel for, all of the people that work on games for so many years, right? Like having something get leaked before you're ready just feels really bad. So I'm definitely feeling for them. But I was gonna say, I don't quite have as much unrelenting faith in Valve. If there's any TCG players out there that remember Artifact, anyone? That was an absolute disaster and shit show. So I don't think this was a calculated, PR stunt, but I hope, hypothetically, that the game should be epic. But just in general, I don't want to give Valve just the benefit of the doubt because, we have seen them kind of mess up before. So, yeah.
I was triggered by that statement. Artifact was absolutely trash. Knock, over to you.
Yeah, Ali was being a little too nice. Artifact was fucking terrible. Like, just objectively, it was just a brutal experience. I think something that's really important to remember here is that this is, by all accounts, like they're really like their first attempt at original IP since like TF2, right? Like CS and Dota, their two big titles, are mods or otherwise from games that already existed, and they've sort of evolved into their own stories and their own IP. But this is like a net new IP that Valve is launching in a game that looks to be blending genres between something like a MOBA and a third-person shooter. I think that there's a lot at risk here, and I think part of the reason why things were probably so lax was to sort of soft test this thing, right? Like, let's show what this is. Let's get some feedback on whether or not gameplay mechanics made sense to the average consumer. I don't think they give a shit about people clowning them for graphics. Like, in the disclaimer before you play, it literally says, this is a highly speculative build. This is something that hypothetically, of course, this is not final art. This isn't what the game is going to look like. Abilities might change, sounds might change. I don't think that they care for people clowning them on the way that something looks. I think that this was a tester to see if the merger of a traditional MOBA and a 6v6 or 5v5 team shooter made sense or was interesting to people.
Sinjin, what do you hypothetically think of what Knock is saying?
I like what Knock is saying hypothetically, especially when he talks in hypothetical terms, which I'm very not uncertain are quite not hypothetical. That was a Billions kind of reference there if you're following along. But, it's very interesting. Okay, Valve does this open playtest pretty much. And for a lot of Web2 studios, when you get to that point, it's not like in Web3 where, it's not deliberate. I mean, you get to the point where you feel like it's at that point where there's enough polish out there that you want to specifically test, I think in this case, the gameplay. And there's a limit to how much you can test within your own dev team or within a Q&A team of alpha testers, because you just can't get that wide kind of feedback that you can with just random players who are very interested in the genre. And so I think Valve definitely made a calculated move there. But again, like Web2 studios generally don't do open play tests like this unless they're much further along. And I think the first leak was actually even an earlier build of what even they were playing already at that time. So I guess maybe the person thought it was funny that they had this build and they could adjust it and stuff like that. It was an earlier build. And so, yeah, a lot of criticism could be there. But then again, it shows the general population, especially in Web 2, that they have no idea what goes into development. And I think it was Gabe Leiden who had said that, you know, the last 10-15% of polish is where a lot of the fun comes out. So that's really the last stage of it. And the reason for that is because when you've optimized the game so much so that there's no lag or it's, you know, whatever, so on and so forth, it's far more immersive. And so when it's immersive as a game, that fun is just really there. There's nothing holding you back from seeing like what the kind of purpose of the game is. I think for a smaller studio, like it depends like how much marketing you've kind of like teed up for your launch. Right now, our particular game has been pretty much off the timeline because we've told everyone don't post anything because we're like on the cusp of launching our game's finished. So we're just trying to get it to the point where it's optimized enough to run. And we've had to upgrade a few multiplayer sync stuff, which has been fucking so painful. And it's probably a month overdue. But we have a trailer, we have everything that everyone has kind of like expected from us as a Web3 game in terms of polish, but we haven't released it because, you know, we want to make the biggest bang out of it. Now, if that all got leaked ahead of time, would it be devastating to us? It wouldn't be devastating, but it wouldn't be good. Just because like for us, we haven't focused on that. And so we will want to get like the momentum going into our kind of next stages of actually launching the game. But a game like, or a publisher like Valve, like, I mean, they could give a shit. I mean, like, you know, if they want to put like their game up on the front, like, what are called banner for the next month and a half, they can do that. So they have the distribution kind of set. And I think it goes back to, you know, where you are as a publisher or a game studio, like how established are you? I mean, at the end of the day, Blizzard has fucked up so much in the last like 5 years, but still, no matter what happens, I mean, Blizzard launches something like tomorrow. I think we're all going to still somewhat ape into it just because of their positioning. But for a small studio, I think it's a big deal. You know, if something gets leaked before your launch, unless of course that whatever gets leaked is, you know, fantastic and you get this viral thing, but that's such a gamble.
Great thoughts, Sinjin. Appreciate you elaborating on the end there, man. Immutable hits 1 million passport signups. Is this a big deal? This is our next subject. As an advisor and a consultant personally, I've heard mixed reviews on Passport. Some projects are super excited that it's going to more easily onboard users and are incredibly optimistic about what that's going to mean for their daily active user numbers and other metrics. Other users seem very unsettled by the idea of not owning their own user data, which is obviously extremely valuable. Some people have even told me they've asked for tremendously larger grants from Immutable to sort of offset this. Like they don't actually want to use this product, but they're being forced to be on Immutable chain. So my question for the panel: your thoughts on Passport, and is 1 million signups in this case a big deal? I'll send it to my co-host Lems first.
I think number of signups is pretty much a little deal. It'll be great when we see, you know, more activity, but this is just the same as setting up wallets and signups for other games, right? People usually end up getting inflated numbers. You have people with multiple accounts and all that stuff. I will say, having used Passport, I think the UX is great, and they've been talking about it for ages, and it's nice that you have something that just works on Immutable and it's the same wallet across the board. As far as I'm aware, you can export the private keys, so it's not non-custodial as well, which is nice. But it's simple, social login, easy to use, so it's a nice experience. But I would not, as with all things in Web3, it's very hard to trust numbers because it's quite easy to inflate them.
Well said, my friend. Over to Sinjin.
Yeah, I have to say, non-hypothetically, I was actually given a demo by Immutable about, I don't know, 3 weeks ago on the Passport thing. And I was so surprised because I've shit on Immutable in public so much about like their shitty tech and stuff like that I'm like, holy shit, man, this is pretty fucking good, man. Like, I'm very impressed with the UI, UX, and also the way that they're handling the coins across the network and stuff like that. So I was very impressed that I said, okay, well, let's definitely have a follow-up call later in the future. So I think it's very plus for Immutable in terms of like turning things around for their general impression of them not being a very strong technical or UX or UI kind of implemented chain, rather than, they have great BD that they're, no one can deny that. Right. In terms of like 1 million, I mean, these are really still like teeny tiny numbers. Like, it just, at the end of the day, it's kind of like, what is the nature of the gamer? Is the gamer someone who really is incentivized because of money, or is the gamer incentivized because they love gaming? Right. And that's what really Web 2 is. Web 2 gamers, or actual gamers, are ones who just love fucking playing great games. And in fact, it's probably the last basin of like humanity against capitalism. Sorry, Knock, I know you played RuneScape, so maybe you have a little different kind of idea of it, but that's why there's such rallying against so many microtransactions, or feeling like everything is a monetization kind of stab at you, and so on and so forth, right? But a lot of the gamers that we have in Web 3 have learned that there is this benefit for to be this aspect of financialization, or earn for free, or to earn money through games, or so on and so forth. And there's a lot of bots. Who knows like what the true numbers are. I would say that probably the top line numbers are probably what Pixels has, but like Pixels and Ronin's player base is really on Pixels and Ronin's. Like, they are not the players who are really playing across the board, right? At least I don't think so. And then you have like a game like Parallel, who definitely has a lot of regular players, right? But what is that actual number of players really? So 1 million, like relative to the rest of Web 2, it's nothing much. But for Immutable, I say I'm happy that they're like chugging along.
Great stuff, Sinjin. Animositas, curious to get your POV on this.
Yeah, so two points. The first, Sinjin, I'll maybe argue a little bit about gamers against capitalism. I would say in most games that have persistent assets and in-game economies, much of the gameplay revolves around leaning into people's desire for acquisition of stuff. Certainly, there's other multiplayer elements and so forth, but I think gamers are not immune and not uninterested in capitalism and acquiring, especially in virtual worlds. In this case, though, what we do see is it's not the acquisition of stuff that's of interest to Web3 gamers. It's actually the acquisition of cash, and really they're just working a job that we're not paying taxes on, probably in most cases. That said, the take on Immutable, I think, is the right one. They, for a long time, have not done a great job. I'll be kind about it, at some of the tech specifics of their platforms. I do think that they are improving, as was evidenced here with the discussions today around Passport. That said, here's the point for founders. If you stick around long enough, you give your organization opportunity after opportunity to survive and continue to build by being good at something. In this case, biz dev is absolutely a critical component of the L2 wars. You give yourself a chance to build your treasury, to be able to continue to build good shit. Doesn't matter if you're a game studio, if you're an ecosystem play, an infrastructure play. At the end of the day, you need capital and funding, and you can buy your way into most tech solutions. And I think we're seeing some of that come to the fore with Immutable here, and bullish on other teams. We've talked about a few here in the space. I think we've got another one we're going to talk about in a bit here with Star Citizen. That said, just continue to stay alive and keep building, and eventually you're likely to close a lot of those gaps that you had initially as a startup.
Let's send it to Zen from Wilder World, and then we'll tag in Mr. Payton.
Yo, yeah, just wanted to extend on that. I agree. Like these solutions are one link in the whole chain that has to work seamlessly to make it work in the grand scheme, in the bigger picture, right? So these infrastructure solutions really important for gaming ecosystems or anyone who builds on that. But that comes then along what we've discussed beforehand is, do we have the right killer apps, the right products to actually push this out into the mainstream? And if you look at Web2 gaming, for example, yeah, there is the game. In some instances, you have like, the marketplaces or whatever, the whole trading component. But if you look at, for example, what Steam did or Epic Games to kind of create like this whole community launcher distribution network, which is some of the stuff is pretty complex tech, but it just makes it really easy for the gamer to access and be in the game. I think this is what we see in Web3 gaming as well. Just it's a bit more complicated, obviously, because you have the whole blockchain mechanisms in there. So I think that once we really go into penetrating into the traditional markets, lots of these things, they might not be as apparent or so important for the traditional gamer to get in there, but we need these solutions for those that are really interested in doing cross-chain or going, into different gaming ecosystems from the same platform. So for me as well, my feedback is there. My opinion is like, we continue to build, make it amazing, make sure that we have these different elements that we all need in order to succeed together as a Web3 space. And then from that moment on, we can settle the right products, the great products on it to actually be successful. So I think, it's one element of it all. And it's great that we have these technologies that make it much easier. The access is much easier than without these technologies. That's basically what I wanted to add in there.
Peyton, over to you, brother.
Yo, what's up, brother? I think for me, it comes down to the games. Like, I actually played Guild of Guardians, and it was like really fun. And like that's kind of like my litmus test of like, as games come out for Immutable X and they start shipping their games, and everybody's starting to ship games now on chains, right? And so it's like, who has the best ones that are gonna have it? And Guild of Guardians looks good. The one thing I'm like looking forward to is like Treeverse. And so if you have Treeverse as well as Guild of Guardians, and then you're using that kind of flywheel to be able to get more people like those people, then it starts kind of getting into a cool zone, right, for Immutable. And so like I was definitely sleeping on Immutable for a long time, like for like the GME stuff and everything like that. But like once they start shipping and like shipping games, and they're actually fun, and I'm actually going in there and playing it, and I'm actually getting addicted to them, I'm just like, oh, there might be something here. And then if they keep on doing that, accounts will go. So like they just need like 1, 2, or 3, and they have the 3 like probably main IPs that I'm watching for them is like Guild of Guardians, how that does over a long tail, as well as Pixelmon. Pixelmon's also up there, and then Treeverse. Treeverse is probably my biggest one that I'm looking out for, because they've been building for a long time, and securing that for Immutable was a huge win.
Yeah, Treeverse was a great get. Andy Adams from Stardust tagging you in.
Yo, I would sound like a robot.
Nope, you're all good.
Wow. Here, thanks for having me at the Strap House. We got the fridge full of goodies. We're vibing. I hate in general hyperbole, so I stay away from it. I think Immutable is going to be just fine. I think all the games are going to be just fine. My 2 cents on this, just in general, is there's a clear sect of games that prefer custodial. Hence, who are working with us, and what's interesting. Response I got back from it was, if Fortnite became a Web3 empowered game overnight, would they use someone else's auth? Would they use someone else's like UI? Just something as really simple and straightforward as a wallet. I just find that hard to believe. So I think that they're going to find lots of games, but I imagine that as we get bigger and bigger scaling, these companies and brands really, really care about their UI UX, and that's where Stardust has continuously shined. But also, to echo Peyton, super excited about everything else that you said, and totally agree. Very bullish.
Sinjin, over to you, brother.
Yeah, Andy, you did cut out a lot there, but I think the point it was, other than the flexibility of Stardust and kind of helping games, keep their UI UX and still have a solution, is certain games don't want to just have a one size fits all kind of infrastructure or UI UX integrated into their game, because it kind of breaks it. And I would have to say, absolutely, I agree with you. This has been my entire thing with a lot of the infrastructure investments in plays that were made during the bear market a couple of years ago, is that you have a lot of these firms who are doing gaming infrastructure, and they're like, this is what games need. But number one is they're being produced by people who are not from the gaming industry. Number two is, they were all like kind of copying one another, thinking like this is the next best kind of thing for what games require. But the way that it works in the gaming industry is that like there are certain games that have created a new kind of mechanic or a certain type of approach or a game loop or something, and then the game designer looks at that and says, okay, I would love to integrate that because I know how that works and I understand that how that can work in a new kind of hybrid version or evolved version of the game. And then whether it's multiplayer or how you do matchmaking or so on and so forth, that infrastructure gets established by a game that was successful and then integrated into other newer games that are coming that are actually creating that genre, right? Whereas in Web3, we've kind of gone backwards because it looks like infrastructure is the easier play that is picks and shovels and so on and so forth rather than the gold. Unfortunately, the way you get the gold in gaming is different than just fucking mining it like in a very robotic formulaic way because it's a hit game industry. There's no real way to get the hit until a hit happens, right? And so until that's really established, I mean, you can make picks and shovels for the way Axie Infinity was, and that's definitely what occurred. There were a whole bunch of like play to earn games right after Axie Infinity, follow the exact same model with the exact same flaws. No one gave a shit about it, but they were able to pump out because they just follow the same kind of infrastructure structure of what Ronin and Axie Infinity had. But as we've moved off into many different types of genre and different types of games, we haven't really found that formula yet, and yet there's been all these infrastructure companies that have been saying, this is what you need, this is what you need for onboarding, this is going to give you the 100 million people in mass, and that's absolutely not the case at all. Not at all. So I would say that for certain games who are trying to kind of figure out what is the approach that they really do want, a one size fits all doesn't really work out. But kudos to Stardust. I know that they've allowed for a lot of flexibility there, but I understand why Immutable is doing that because they do want to create some cohesion where it's a selling point, like one wallet and one style of wallet will fit across all the games. But what if that takes away from that owns games kind of selling point or formula that they're trying to really come out with? So there's to both sides, but it's good for Immutable at least.
Well said, my friends. Branching out in a groundbreaking leap, Avalanche is bringing the beloved game Maple Story into their leafy groves of Web3, promising to plant its cherished saga in the fertile soil of Web3 tech. And as our sponsor, they're proudly proclaimed as the official blockchain of Gamified. Perched at the peak of innovation, Avalanche's subnets stand as mighty oaks in the forest of technology, enabling creators to craft and cultivate environments with an unmatched precision and autonomy. And ladies and gentlemen, target your attention on the titans of tactics, the detonator of digital domination. Enlist and lock your shrap in a subnet to get metal, setting the stage for your future rewards in their ecosystem. Play with Moku and forge your future with quests and monthly STXs. Discord games like Lunatics and sleeping giants like Mercury. Lock, load, and launch into the fray with Shrapnel, our sponsor and our official game of Gamified. And fasten your seatbelts for a celestial voyage with Stardust, the interstellar infrastructure of Gamified. This is a cosmic conduit. It isn't just a tool, it's a galaxy of genius, a white label warp drive weaving the straightforward simplicity of Web 2 with the star studded sophistication of Web 3, navigating the nebula of over 150 chains, harnessing the power of every single EVM, including Avalanche. Stardust operates as the supreme starship steward and the guardian of your in game gold and galactic gamer gains. Big thanks to Stardust, the official infrastructure of Gamified. We're moving on with Star Citizen hitting $700 million raised. Absolutely insane. That's another 100 million raised since we last talked about them 9 months ago when they were making headlines for raising $600 million. Should early investors feel jaded 10 years later or happy about the game's success? Chris Roberts said back in 2015, quote, by the end of this year, backers will have everything they originally pledged for, plus a lot more. That was 2015. Reddit was memeing on him saying that after 700 million raised, backers, quote, still don't have everything that they pledged for, plus a lot less. And what has Star Citizen figured out here that nobody else seems to have? And are these grifters or just god tier marketers? Let's tag in Dub first.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like early investors get fucked, but overall, Star Citizen is winning. And I mean, another 100 mil is another 100 mil. Sell me a ship. It sounds like I'm ready to play. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's great news. If I was an early investor, I would have super mixed feelings about it. Like, on one hand, it's great that they're still raising, still going, still doing this thing. But on the other hand, like, I'd feel like I had a lot of opportunity loss over the coming years, and would be hoping that they got some sort of blockchain curveball coming up for the next year to raise another hundreds to 700 million, and then I'd be really stoked. But it's a weird story at this point.
Well said. Sinjin, over to you.
I think to frame it as a raise is kind of incorrect because even though they don't have an official release, the games to some degree are playable. And the spike that recently happened was because they have an event called some kind of Flight Week, whatever, where they're like literally showcasing like new ships and stuff like that. And so it's like kind of like the annual kind of like, hey, let's buy a new ship and let's like unveil something new, like a car show almost. And so because they haven't released, we take it as a raise, but it's not really a raise. It's actually kind of revenue for their game. And if you go through a lot of the threads, like there are people who are basically saying this is like fake news because in reality, I mean, even though they haven't a release date, there are a lot of playable, aspects of the game. I think they have like two sets of. Don't quote me here because I'm not an expert here, but there's like two forms of games that they have out that are somewhat playable that are in like this kind of alpha position. But also, if you read deeper into like the story itself, they've had to create their own infrastructure as well of technology that didn't exist for them to kind of get this vision out. So I think for a lot of people who are engaged in the Star Citizen ecosystem, I think that they feel pretty content with where the direction of everything is going. And everyone who's not in the ecosystem at all is like just thinking they're grifters. But really, I mean, if you thought about it, like how many years has it been now? Like, I don't know, like 10 years or whatever. If this was a Web3 game, these guys would have been long gone and they wouldn't be continually rugging and, raising, every year unless you're a fucking idiot and you just kind of want to always believe in them. But I don't think that's the case here. I think that they're genuinely moving forward. No one expected, how big of a lift it was really going to be, and they're delivering.
Let's send it over to Animositas.
Yeah, look, I think as long as they come out and they're somewhere north of $100 trillion valuation, everyone's going to be happy. From a Web3 perspective, this is the right way to go. I think in general, I have to believe that smart money is eventually going to stop if they aren't seeing progress. And I can just speak to this from my own experience doing capital raises and watching other studios. You can absolutely get people to commit money early on in a project that has little progress because the valuations are low, the equity or tokens or whatever you're offering are pretty high. But eventually that stops and you have to show metrics, you have to show progress and content. I tend to think that after the first 100 million, the people that are continuing to put more in still see something meaningful, and you're not going to be the last person to want to drop 10 million into a project that you're pretty confident has no chance of ever launching. That said, I'm more in Sinjin's camp here at this point at the end. They woefully underestimated what they needed to launch. I would argue that part of this means that as a founder, you didn't do a good job of scope management and offering some better iterative solutions along the way that would have let you ship something sooner and then continue to scale it out afterwards. But I think that's something that a lot of investors will forgive as long as they feel like they have a chance to have a part of the project that you're building. So I'm not going to call them a rug, obviously.
Sorry, Annie. It is rough in there. Might need you to step outside for whenever you want to speak. The audio is just getting worse and worse. Doc, I'm sending it over to you, man.
I see Annie just looking at his phone, like, what just happened? I think, I'm just gonna maybe just regurgitate something that Paul Bettner said a few months ago, but I think at some point you kind of have to accept that this is just part of the experience, right? Like there's very clearly appetite for assets. There's clearly an appetite for active participation within the communities that spun up around the game, the interest in the development cycle. Like people are still spending all kinds of money on this game and they don't feel some kind of way about it. And you know that that's true because they wouldn't be spending as much money as they did if they did feel some kind of way about it. I think for a lot of people who have been involved in this for the last few years, it's now a real like invested journey, both in a financial sense, but in like a personal sense. They want to see this game, you know, come to fruition. They like the communities that they've built. They pay attention to the sort of things that are going on. And I think when a lot of people represent this story, they represent it as something that, you know, this is a team that just raised $700 million and never delivered anything. And that's just like objectively false, right? There are playable experiences, there are communities, there are events that are going on. It's just not a fully playable game in the way that we're used to. But Paul argued that maybe this is part of the game. Maybe this experience of watching a new tech be developed is part of the reason why people are along for this journey. And if you think about it that way, it's not too dissimilar to what's happening in Web3, right? A lot of us are getting involved with games at very early stages of development, and we're kind of just here continuing to put money in, hoping to see the way that this develops. So I don't think that this is nearly as big a deal as people are making it out to be. And people seem to be pretty happy with their purchases because they continue to spend more money. So I think this is interesting, but maybe it's just a different take on gaming.
Well, let's see if you think this one is a big deal. Web3 gaming launcher is acquiring arena shooter IP RoboKiden. RoboKiden is an upcoming free online third-person shooter that'll be available on PC, PS5, Xbox, and Switch, continuing the trend of Web3 games managing to get onto consoles, which you love to see. This strategic acquisition will take place on an AVAX subnet with key support from Ava Labs, which should help to establish RoboKiden as a flagship title for the Elixir platform. The acquisition and partnership follow the successful closure of a $14 million seed funding round. My question for the panel, though, Valve had Team Fortress 2, Epic Games had Fortnite. Can RoboKiden be the same kind of catalyst for Elixir? And is this a big deal, little deal, or no deal for Elixir finally taking the leap, so to speak, into trying to acquire one of these intellectual properties that can drive demand for their product? Dub, tagging you in first.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I hate to be the hater in the closet, but I'm literally in a closet and I'm gonna hate on it. It's a little deal to me. I think back to No Way Back and Elixir's original flagship game and product and the lifespan that that one lived through. And ultimately, like, I feel like they're going down the same path with this one. The last one had a very hyped animated trailer that I was really excited for, but then when it got down to playing the game and all that kind of stuff, there was just a miss, especially around the live ops of it. So, like, I'm optimistically hopeful for it, but overall, the hater in the closet in the room at the end of the day.
All right, Lebs, over to you, man.
Yeah, I'll kind of echo Dub's sentiment. Like, I had not heard of it before this announcement, so I feel like that doesn't bode well for it to be a flagship. Like, I could just be in my own bubble and totally living under a rock and it's some big thing, but I feel like to really break out and be something, you know, as big as what like Valve has and with Epic Games is like you need to have something that is just kind of that god tier game that people are going to be really excited about playing. And if it was one of these like flagships we already see in Web3 in a game that everyone's talking about, it feels like it would carry a lot more weight and probably get a lot more people onto the launcher. I think it's still interesting though. I mean, they've got secured getting console listings, so it could be a lot bigger than I'm giving it credit for, and maybe it does blow up, and that brings a lot more eyes to the platform.
Great point. I appreciate everybody in the comments as well, fighting through the technical difficulties to drop comments, give us retweets, etc. Not exactly sure what the problem is, but seeing some comments of people saying, Injoka says, I had to steal an elderly woman's laptop to make this comment. Somebody else was saying that it wasn't working on mobile, so it seems like PC is the way to go. If you want to chime in, apologies for those technical difficulties. Knock, tagging you in, your thoughts on the RoboKiden acquisition for Elixir, and if it could be a big deal.
Yeah, so I've joined Dub in the dark closet. It's weird in here, but it's way too loud everywhere else in this house. So I think on the surface it looks like a pretty big deal. I mean, the game itself looks pretty interesting, and I think the Elixir team has done a really good job of making noise over the course of the last couple of years. You know, we mentioned that with Epic Games, they had something as big as Fortnite, and that's maybe a benchmark for what a flagship title should look like. But I think it's important to remember that that title, as well as many quote unquote flagship titles from other development studios, didn't work at first. Fortnite Save the World was, by all accounts, like an absolutely failed game, and a Hail Mary turned it into the sort of thing that it is today. So I think it's maybe a little unfair to pin a previous failure of a flagship title against Elixir, because so many teams have gone through the same thing. Ship a game, this is the flagship title, it doesn't work out. We've taken a pivot, and something else becomes front and center for that development studio or for whatever that project might be. So I think in that sense, it's a little unfair to give them maybe harp on it for too long. That being said, I do think to Dub's point, Elixir has now named 2 or 3 different titles as a flagship. And I really like those guys. Carlos is a good friend of mine, but I do think it's time for one of those titles to be a hit, find some success beyond just the playtests and the Elixir events. So I'm cautiously optimistic this one works out. The game looks pretty interesting. It looks like the type of game that I would give a shot at. And the team obviously has been able to find some form of product market fit with the other suite of things that they're building. But I do think it's time for them to deliver on a quote unquote flagship title.
Great stuff, Knock. All right, we move on. Looks like there isn't a whole lot of interest in this topic. Quickfire. Counter-Strike announces players can now quote-unquote rent weapon skins. The new Kilowatt collection allows you to rent an entire collection except for the super rare special item you can rent for up to a week. What's your take on them coming in to basically recreating Web3 and Web2 without any real form of ownership at the end of the day? I'm going to tag Lems, my co-host, in first.
I think it's really funny. I read some of the comments. It was pretty entertaining to watch how triggered people were. And there was a fair criticism, which is that, the skin flex doesn't really mean anything now if you could just rent it from someone else, as opposed to like being that person who, pulled it on the gotcha side of things. So I think that is fair. I mean, that's never going to encounter with Web3 if we're trading all our assets anyway. But I just think I really just grabbed the popcorn and went and reading the Reddit comments and had a good time.
St. what say you?
I'll say that, this is like all the Web3 people will, you can do this in Web3 or whatever like this, right? But listen, motherfuckers, you need a hit game like fucking CS to fucking make it work. So, like, mine's the fucking hit game. None of the value of owning your own shit is going to be worth fucking anything, you dumb fucking asses.
All right, Knock, over to you.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of a less spicy take, but I actually agree with Sinjin. I mean, I think like the idea that this is replicable in Web3 is frankly a little stupid. Like, CS, Fortnite, maybe League of Legends are like real exceptional cases where you have such a critical mass of player that buying and selling skins is like a primary form of income makes sense. The idea that you might want to like rent a skin also makes sense for people who want to flex. Like the idea that a skin flex ever meant anything, I think, is pretty stupid. The overwhelming majority of influencers who, flex their Lambos are on a 24-hour rent for that car anyway. They don't own it, and people still eat it up. So I think this is something that you see in the traditional world. In the traditional influencer game, people fake their level of wealth all of the time. There's a reason why people like Iggy Azalea are pumping and dumping shit coins, because they're not as rich as you think they are. And I think that the flex idea doesn't really, I don't think that holds water. What is weird to me is I don't see this being a successful thing for anything outside of the most rare and expensive CS skins. Like I can't, I have a hard time grasping a scenario in which I want to rent a $10 Counter-Strike skin. Like that just doesn't make any sense to me. Like how would you even price that That's really strange. This feels like a more white glove luxury offering. I want to rent a $100,000 skin for a week to flex. Like maybe that makes sense. I think it's weird. I don't really think that this is going to be super successful, to be honest with you. But I definitely do not think that anybody in Web3 is in a position to replicate this at all.
Dub, over to you. JK, over to Annie.
Yeah, I tend to think the same. In general, I'm always concerned when I go against a studio that's made hundreds of millions, maybe billions of dollars doing something that, if they make a slight tweak to their business model, I assume that they have people way smarter than me that know a lot more about the product, and that's why they're doing so. It does feel off to me, though. I agree with Dub and Sinjin that it is a strange idea that people care about renting a skin from someone else, where clearly you're no longer the person that actually acquired the thing. The whole reason that people enjoyed flexing in capital cities in World of Warcraft was they did so because either they had something that was incredibly expensive bind on equip item, meaning you were able to buy it, but you had to spend millions of gold or whatever, or something that's bind on pickup, which meant you had to ostensibly earn it in a raid or by accomplishing something in an arena or whatever. That just having stuff that you could go buy for whatever in the auction house, nobody gave a shit about. And so I don't get the sense of that people are going to be keen on anything other than the most upper tier products. What I will say is this absolutely demonstrates that Web 2 is thinking about this concept of ownership and sharing of cosmetic assets at another level than we've seen for a while, right? If industry leaders like this are actually embracing this as a concept, clearly something in the narrative is changing to the idea that players do want ownership, and ownership sometimes means the ability to lend or borrow from other people, not just to own and sell.
There's a great comment from one of our audience members, Fizera. They say rent skin features is a workaround for Valve to bypass country-related loot box laws. So that might be some of the explanation for why they're attempting to do this. Shrapnel, Dub, over to you.
Yeah, obviously we're working on weapon skins and launching them, selling them. It's a part of our ecosystem. And like, I don't want to give away like too much ingredients to the gumbo soup that I've been cooking, per se. But like, if you give value to these skins beyond the flex and beyond the cosmetic side, there is stuff there. Like the obvious one for me is when these skins are used as gated entry into like limited tournaments or prize tournaments. Like if all of a sudden every single common Dubluster, whatever Glock gun, has got everyone entry into $1,000 tournament over the weekend, then everyone's going to go buy that at whatever value they think that entry is to that tournament, right? So I think there's something there. I think we'll be the ones like pushing that needle and what that looks like, and people are going to be trying to remake the amazing soup that we cook. But at the end of the day, it's all about the special ingredients that you put into it.
I'm excited to hear more about that gumbo. Send it over to Knock.
Yeah, we made it 80 minutes into the game, into Gamified, but I'm going to drop a RuneScape reference here. I think one of the only like really successful implementations of like a proper rental system that I've seen was in what is now RuneScape 3. And the idea behind it was there are quote unquote like mega rare items in RuneScape that just make all certain combat styles just like infinitely more effective for bossing or high level content or end game content. And there was a rental system that in game you could trade a player, you could rent one of those particular items for X period of time, and then you would go and use that item to hopefully make back your rental fee plus much more because the item was just that much more powerful. But frankly, it was like too unattainable for the overwhelming majority of players. And I think that that's kind of what Dub is getting at here, right? If there is real utility or maybe like a cost benefit analysis that players can do when it comes to whether or not it makes sense to rent an item that is maybe out of reach or too expensive or too difficult to get, that makes sense. in the case of CS, it's literally cosmetic, right? Like your gun's not gonna gun better than another gun because it's got a fancy skin, and you don't use the knife except for inspecting it and watching it twirl around your fingers anyway. So I don't think that you'll see nearly as wide an adoption in something that is primarily skins for the sake of being a skin. I really do think like this will be a interesting mechanic for a few weeks, and then will probably die off, and you'll see professional players be lent out, really expensive skins in like tournaments maybe. And hey, like this guy hooked me up with this skin, because we've seen that sort of flexing before in the past in video games. But yeah, I don't see this ever being something special, to be honest with you.
Peyton, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Knock and a lot of the other things that have been said. Was the aspect of the utility that like kind of Dub is talking about. We've also seen that with kind of the first iterations of the Web3 games that have come out, right? Like we have Axie, which had like birthed the whole manager system, which have birthed like these huge conglomerates that we currently have in the Web3 space. One of them is a sponsor of Simplified, YGG, right? They pretty much built off that as like a utility base type of thing. Even Big Time was very heavy on cosmetics before. And then it just so happened that they found out there was a revenue hack that happened once you give utility to those cosmetics that can do a full set for dungeon raid that will be able to earn, right? So there's just like a lot of those things that like as a new demographic of like player base, which is like probably a financialized whale. Like I've known them even with champions. There are like whales out there that purchase a lot of these assets and then put them to work and rent them out by just not even renting them out, but just like giving them login codes. So I think that's a lot of what like Web3 is probably gonna benefit with. But yeah, cosmetic for cosmetic sake, probably not gonna work.
We move on. Jonah Blake on Simplified this Monday said that Yuga Labs potentially attempted to buy EverQuest's intellectual property. My question for the panel, would that have changed the fate of the otherwise underwhelming gaming approach from Bored Ape Yacht Club and Yuga Labs? Or are you thankful that they didn't touch the nostalgic and beloved Web 2 MMORPG? I think this is one of the more interesting mental exercises. There's a lot of different ways that they could have potentially engaged with the intellectual property. Maybe they still do all the other side, other deed kind of stuff, but just integrate EverQuest tech into it, or potentially they keep the MMORPG as is and integrate Yuga's IP directly into the game and try to revive it that way. Knock, I'll send it over to you first.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that's really important to remember is that looking into buy or looking into acquire is a process that happens for pretty much any sizable team like 7 times a month, right? You have dozens of merger and acquisition conversations. You have dozens of acqui-hire conversations. And part of the reason for that is at some point you're looking to expand beyond your true like core competencies as a business. And one of the ways that you can make something that is outside of that scope a core competency is to purchase a team that is doing a really good job of building that thing. It's how companies like Amazon and Google and pretty much every other major company has developed to the size that they're at. So I don't know how much weight I would actually put into the fact that they looked into buying EverQuest. I think it's a likelihood. Yeah, we've had a conversation. Here's an IP that people care about that sort of disappeared. Anecdotally, like we looked to pick up when we were launching 11 Gaming in 2017, we looked at a number of titles, like actual old video games to purchase the rights to name the esports org after those particular games, which was a terrible fucking idea, but we did it anyway. For the sake of this, I will assume that it actually happened and it was pretty close. And my assumption here would be that it's actually probably a standalone, product. It probably wouldn't have intertwined too deeply with the rest of the Yuga ecosystem. I mean, I think historically, if you look at Yuga and the way that they've approached games, it has been a relatively siloed approach, right? You might have some crossover in the sense that owning a particular asset gives you a key that gives you an asset for another game. But really, like Dookie Dash lived outside of heavy metal, which lived outside of Legends of the Mara, which lived outside of Other Side and everything that they're building. So my assumption here is it probably would have been a standalone product where they would have weaved in some Yuga IP, maybe things like Moonbirds and things of that nature. I just don't see a world where even if they were really deep into conversation here, it was ever like a one-to-one replacement for or an alternative to Other Side. I think Other Side is probably a standalone product that they were always going to build, and EverQuest was maybe an opportunity that came across their door. And like any good business does, they did their due diligence into whether or not it made sense to purchase. And for one reason or another, Yuga doesn't own EverQuest. Am I happy about that? Probably. I think building an MMO is ridiculously difficult. And frankly, even the MMO teams that have successful MMOs really don't know how to build MMOs. It's just such a difficult thing to do, and most players who play any MMO will tell you that they fucking hate that game, but they just can't stop playing it for whatever reason. I'm definitely that way with pretty much everything that happens in RuneScape. I hate it, but I can't stop playing it. So I think it would have been a massive undertaking and probably a massive mistake.
Damn. Well, that is an incredibly boring take, but probably very accurate. Animal Citas, over to you.
Oh, great. Mine's going to be even worse. Look, there's a saying that if you owe the bank $100,000, you have a problem. If you owe the bank $1 billion, the bank has a problem. This is the same issue in Web3. If you have $100,000 or $1 million treasury, you have a problem as a project, right? If you have $1 billion treasury, your community and your investors have a problem with you as a project, because what the hell are you going to do to deploy that capital to get it working for you in a meaningful way? And I think this is the problem that some studios, it's a good problem to have, but it's also a very real problem. They're looking for ways to branch out, and the question of fit for Yuga owning a project like EverQuest just boggles my mind, right? Like, in what universe does that seem to make sense other than the fact that they're both virtual projects and virtual studios? I don't see any kind of synergies whatsoever. However, if you've got to deploy hundreds of millions of dollars, there's a fairly finite set of options you can actually go for. And so I like Nox's take that you've got to start doing your due diligence on the projects that actually fit into that space, in the same way that an investor is going to have to look at projects that are Series B or Series C level. If you're trying to deploy billions of dollars, you can't spend 25K and actually get any meaningful distribution of your income that way. So that said, like, I think it's a due diligence process that a studio at that scale has to go through. I think it would have been a horrific error. They don't know how to manage a game that's being built with their own IP. How in the world would they be able to take something that's multiple decades old and convert it into anything meaningful? So probably bullish on Yuga for not successfully completing this acquisition.
Oh man, that was almost a knock take. Yuga, it's bullish that Yuga did nothing at all. Knock, over to you.
Oh, taking shots. Look at that. Unexpected fire there. Well, you know what? Just for that, we're going to go back-to-back RuneScape references. Just to talk a little bit about how hard, and I think Annie was right here, how difficult this is to manage as like an outside party. When Jagex sold for the first time, they sold to a company who immediately, within like a couple of months, made a real like structural overhaul to the combat system in RuneScape. It was called Evolution of Combat. It went live around 2010, maybe 2011. And long story short, it was so disastrous that it actually led to RuneScape turning into two different games. There's old school RuneScape, which is a 2007 port found on somebody's fucking laptop that they've spun up and rebuilt because of how bad that Evolution of Combat decision was. And then there's RuneScape 3, which only sociopaths play because it's elevating and using that Evolution of Combat mechanics in the style there. So I think this was a real life example of a team who came in, purchased an IP that had been around for 15 years, made a decision that they really didn't understand because they couldn't have. They didn't understand the player base. They don't understand the history of that particular game. They make a disastrous decision that almost sinks Jagex. Somebody there had the foresight to say, fuck it, like, let's just spin up a 2007 version of this game and give people what they want. And now that's the more popular version of the game, and Jagex is $1 billion company again. But that doesn't happen more times than not, right? Like, in all likelihood, what probably happens for the overwhelming majority of studios is they make a decision like that, or they purchase an IP and they make a decision that they don't fully understand, and they kill that game and they kill it pretty quickly. And we've seen this happen in the past. I know, Sam, you wanted a really spicy take out of this. Oh, it would have been great if Yuga had purchased EverQuest, but I think the reality of the situation is, we talk about this a lot, but we as participants, influencers, KOLs, people who are just trading, active community participants, we're operating in an environment of information asymmetry, right? We don't know what is going on behind the scenes. And honestly, what is going on behind the scenes for a lot of teams is you have 2 or 3 or 4 external forces pushing and putting pressure on you and your business. And a lot of the times, as Andy mentioned, when you're sitting on a couple $100 million in cash, the external forces are saying, you need to find a way to deploy that. So sometimes that looks like the acquisition of a 25-year-old MMO that nobody fucking understands. And sometimes that looks like the acquisition of another set of PFPs within the Web3 ecosystem, right? I don't think either of them are necessarily good ideas, but I think it's important to understand that we don't understand. And a lot of these teams are dealing with a bunch of forces outside of just the public pressure of Web3. And it's difficult to make like educated opinions or form educated opinions on whether or not a business is being operated properly because you don't know the pressure that investors or other third parties are pushing on these teams.
Fair points, well said, Knock. Thanks for rolling with the punches, man. Sinjin, tagging you in before we move on.
Yeah, as far as I heard it, that it was EverQuest that said no to Yuga, and they have like 31 expansions, and the game is still going on to some degree, I believe. And then they had some like EverQuest 2 and next. I think for an IP, I mean, EverQuest, it's still something. We used to call it EverSmack or EverCrack or whatever like that back in the day. But I think for Yuga, it would have been a great expansion. I mean, acquisition in the sense that they would have gotten all this know-how and the way that EverQuest is set up. I mean, if they had just basically copied that original formula and really tried to make an update on that, I don't know that it would have been successful as a kind of remastered relaunch. Obviously not. But in terms of like getting the know-how in an MMO, and getting that data and getting that information and then kind of moving forward from that, I think it would have been great. But I also think that the expectations in taking something like EverQuest into the fold, people's expectation probably would have been blown sky high, and nothing they could have done with that acquisition probably would have made it work out, at least in their favor. So it's good that they didn't get it, but on like a commercial sense, but on for a know-how and an understanding sense, I think it would have been fantastic acquisition. I think everyone who's not in gaming underestimates the complexity and depth that you require to be in gaming. It's not like everyone's like a player, so I play the game. So like, oh fuck, it's great. So like you play basketball, but like, or you play football. But if you were gonna set up your own NFL or your own NBA, like how fucking difficult would that be? Let alone setting up your own pro team, right? And so, having that know-how and having that all pre-mapped out and having the kind of, material with that acquisition, I think it would have been really fantastic for them, more in terms of a research kind of thing rather than a real commercial acquisition.
I'd be inclined to agree with you there, man. We're going to move on to the last topic of the day. We got GOATs versus WOATs making a reappearance. What's the best and the worst sequels of all time in video games? Just to jog your memory, we have Red Dead Redemption, Mass Effect, Half-Life, Halo, Watch Dogs, Age of Empires, Duke Nukem, Star Wars Battlefront, Deus Ex, Pokemon, Dead Space, StarCraft 2, Warcraft 3, Dota 2. The list goes on and on and on. It doesn't have to be anything that I listed there. I want to know, in your opinion, what's the greatest and the worst sequels in the history of video games? I'm tagging in Ali Straza first.
All right, best. I'm going in with Super Smash Bros. Melee as best sequel, and I think I'm gonna put worst as Overwatch 2. I just a more recent one, but classic overpromise, underdeliver, and pretty unacceptable from a titan like Blizzard. So I think those are my two.
Damn, that was actually a banger. Overwatch 2 didn't come to mind, but very, very, very good start. Let's go over to my co-host Lems.
Damn, Ellie stole me on that one. That was like the best, worst one that we could have had. Overwatch 2 is the biggest disappointment of the decade. That's I'm with you there. I was going to put a GOAT and WOAT in the same series. Assassin's Creed, when it came out, first one was like pretty decent. It was like a little bit repetitive. The second one was fucking amazing, and that was like the GOAT of the series. And then they kind of like fumbled the bag on the third one, so that was a WOAT. But nothing can top how bad Overwatch 2 is as an OG Overwatch enjoyer, and I'm really glad Ali mentioned that one.
Damn, absolutely brutal. Sinjin, your thoughts?
Definitely GOAT the Warcraft series. Like Warcraft 1 was like just fucking awesome. It was one of my first experiences like landing with friends. And I remember my friend, he worked at like this Korean math Hagwon like institute, and we broke in at like 3 a.m. in the morning. We played until like 5, 6, 7 o'clock or something. Because it was the only LAN computers we could have at that time. And then Warcraft 2 was, oh my fucking god, was fucking nuts. And then Warcraft 3, and then which totally changed the RTS genre in terms of like focusing on more heroes along with your main armies and stuff like that, your whatever. And then obviously the mods that came off of that were Dota and LOL that ended up fantastic shit. And then I would say for me personally, even though it's not really like the worst of all time, would be StarCraft 2. I think with StarCraft 2, they had humongous boots to fill and expectations to fill as, StarCraft arguably is the definitive esports game. And for all of you youngins who have never played it, I would say go play the remastered version. The UX sucks if you were to look at it right now. But if you were to play that game intensely for like 4 months, every fucking day, and like competitively, you would find a counter upon a counter upon a counter, and like you go through the whole like tech tree, and then you would come back again, and then you would start again with the most basic like tech, like defeating the most advanced tech in certain situations. The problem with StarCraft 2 is that they hard designed in counters. So like when they were designing StarCraft 1, like they didn't design it, they just gave you the tools, and then the players could really decide what to do with those tools and what to do with the tech trees. But in StarCraft 2 they were much more deliberate about it. What happened was that the game became much more predictable in the sense that when there was a major pitch battle, the game was virtually over, and so there was no chance of a comeback, and the resources that were like set up for supporting that, it just wasn't structured enough. And so StarCraft actually was played competitively longer than StarCraft 2, even after StarCraft 2 died as competitive scene. That the StarCraft scene had come back for a little bit as well back in Korea. So it's quite unfortunate. I don't think that there is something better than StarCraft Brood War, though, in that particular genre, though. So it was kind of an impossible task.
Sinjin, breaking my heart. StarCraft 2 is my baby. How dare you? The scene is still alive, by the way, okay? He overstates the demise of StarCraft 2. I will say, though, their lack of willingness to balance aggressively and quickly is what destroyed that game, in my opinion. You are a bit right that it's hard to come back and counters are a little bit too dynamic. But what really
A bit right? Oh, come
dude,
on, Sam. This is
what really
hopium.
fucking
Oh
killed
my
it, what
god.
really fucking killed it, Sinjin, is the fact that it took years for them to balance things that were fundamentally broken and allowed like Zerg and Terran to just win
Yeah,
tournaments.
that was because of the way they designed it at the beginning. I agree with you. It's because of the way they designed it, because they had a very good idea of how they want to differentiate it from StarCraft 1, right? But because of that, it fucked them, right? I mean, like it was just such a hard task, and I think they just got caught up in it, and then they just basically paralysis at some degree.
Sinjin's tearing my heart out and stomping it on the floor. Knock your goats and woats sequels of all time.
Dude, I have so many opinions on this, and the first one starts with Ali absolutely fucking nailed it. Anybody who says that Smash was like, listen, I think Melee's great. Ultimate is a step in the wrong direction. Maybe I think it takes a lot of the skill out of the game. I would argue the inverse of Ali's point. I think from a gamer perspective, Overwatch 2 is definitely like the definitive worst of all time sequel, like across any game ever, and I don't think that there's a whole lot to be argued there. It's literally the exact same game, but they threw a 2 on it, and they put like an extra map. It was a patch. I think from a business perspective, I would actually argue that it's probably also the definitive GOAT. Like this is one of the original promises from Overwatch was we will never monetize loot boxes in Overwatch 1. And then they're like, fuck it, Overwatch 2, it's the exact same game, also now microtransactions. The game was more popular than it had been in years, and they were making way more fucking money because they were able to break the promise of we'll never, monetize loot boxes. So I think it's a vote from the player's perspective, but holy shit, what a great business move. Fucking absolutely amazing. They didn't deliver on a single thing that they promised. They released a patch with one extra map, and they put a 2 in front or beside the name. Hilarious that happened. Beyond that, Mass Effect 2 is the best Mass Effect that ever existed. I don't care what anybody has to say about that. Gears of War 3, I know technically isn't a sequel, but Gears of War 3 is the best Gears of War, for sure. So those are 2 GOATs. I think Gold and Silver, and specifically the remakes, Heart Gold and Soul Silver of Pokemon, that's where Pokemon should have ended. Like this beautiful story of run through all of Kanto and Johto in one story, 16 badges. It was a ton of fun. You get to choose which gyms you challenged when. It was like an incredible game. And then every single Pokemon, with the exception of maybe like Ruby and Emerald and Sapphire, were like complete fucking garbage after that. Like now we're just like there's 15 different types of ice cream cones that are Pokemon. It's ridiculous. The story doesn't exist. None of the gameplay is fun. It's the same regurgitated bullshit of 8 badges, Elite Four, do some random fetch quests after. Heart Gold and Soul Silver was like an actual step up on the original games. 10 out of 10, excellent. Worst of all time, RuneScape 3, Evolution of Combat is the worst thing that ever fucking happened to that game. It literally almost killed the company. It was that bad of an update. And then I'll say the last thing is probably Crash Team Racing 2. I don't care what anybody has to say about this. Crash Team Racing is the superior kart racing game. So much better than anything Mario Kart has ever put together. The second version of it, even more so. That is my all-time GOAT of GOATs.
Damn, the entire consensus rippled through Knock saying that. Peyton, over to you.
No, it was really good. I'm gonna cheat too and like not go with the sequel, but like I remember the jump from Halo 2 to Halo 3 was like fantastic. Like the campaign was great, multiplayer was great, and like Forge was great. Like just the amount of hours spent with friends in that, with the amount of it's just like derivative content after derivative content. And then like you win, Ali, with Overwatch 2. So, but like I know Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 was also a huge fail. So like I'll go with that. Sorry, Sam, totally cheated. Those were not sequels, but
Dead to me. Knock, put the hand back up. Over to you, then I'm going to give my answers.
I forgot an absolute fucking dumpster fire of a game, which was Diablo 3. Holy shit. Dude, that game was so bad that as far as I'm concerned, they released Diablo 1, Diablo 2, Diablo 4, and then that was it. Like, 3 shouldn't have existed. I don't know what the fuck they put into that game. But that might actually be my real vote, even above Overwatch 2. That game was, like, horrific.
Damn, I was actually going to make it mine as well, except for eventually it got pretty decent. Like 5 years later, I went back and played it, and I was like, all right, you've salvaged it a bit. Charlie, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I literally was about to say Diablo 2 was one of the greatest of all time, and then Diablo 3 was just immediately one of the worst of all time in the same series. I think Diablo 2 still has like one of the craziest followings of like a lot, like one of those games. Like we used to work with a creator he's basically been streaming the game for 20 years. It still just crushes. It's just such an amazing community, and it's it's such a good game. And then just the 3 was such a flop. So I'm happy that Knox said it because yeah, that was such a heartbreak to see it just kind of be such a different game and poorly received.
All right, my official answer is the best. Obviously, StarCraft 2, Sinjin is full of shit. And then the worst is World of Warcraft Cataclysm. They added goblins. They fucked a bunch of systems up. It was garbage tier trash out of Blizzard. It was the beginning of the end. Never were they to recover. Diablo 4 fucking sucks too. I couldn't even get through the entire campaign, and I'm one of the most hardcore Diablo fans that I know. Absolutely brutal to see what's happened there, but StarCraft still has a soft spot in my heart, so we'll let it slide at least a little bit. Finishing up. Andy wants to chime in. Go ahead.
Oh well, sorry, I've been like half plugged in. I've been networking down here in the house. Has anyone talked about the Battletoads 2020 release on Xbox One? Has anyone talked about that?
We are now.
It was mid. That's all.
All right, not sure what to do with that, except for compliment Avalanche. Avalanche, not merely a participant, but a pioneering powerhouse in the blockchain universe, collaborating with some of the most electrifying entities in esports and entertainment, with partnerships that span the strategic synergies with TSM Blitz, the dynamic realms of Korean esports with the Titan T1, to the nostalgic nuances of Maple's story. They're not just part of the game, they're leading the revolution, making monumental moves that meld with magic of gaming and groundbreaking technology. Thanks to our sponsor, Avalanche, the official blockchain of Gamified. And up next, reload, regroup, and rally as we salute Shrapnel, the strategic superstar spearheading the pulse of Web3 gaming. They're the architects of your arenas and the guardians of your gameplay, our sponsors, and the official game of Gamified. If you're looking to get involved, there's no time like the present, baby. Shrapnel continues to add more opportunities to engage, earn, and be rewarded in their ecosystem. So jump into the Discord, learn more about their quests and the Lunatics Metal, Mercury, and Ecosystem rewards. And before we power down, let's spotlight Stardust, the stellar scaffold of Gamified. Don't miss their latest cosmic creation, Stardust's innovative user acquisition tool. Stardust is dazzling gamers more than ever, capturing hearts and handles at a cost that's nearly cosmic dust. Stardust transforms this dream into a reality by precision targeting the perfect players for your platform at just the right moment. So keep your games gleaming and your player counts climbing. Let's Stardust sprinkle a little of that stellar secret sauce on your strategies, supercharging your success. Huge thank you to our sponsor, Stardust, for being the official infrastructure of Gamified. And I almost forgot. We're doing MVPs for the panel. So I'm going to go around in a circle and everybody's going to vote for who their MVP is. Whoever wins the MVP of the day is going to get 60 seconds to plug whatever they want at the end of this panel. Lems, I'm kicking off with you. Who wins your MVP? You can't vote for yourself, obviously.
Oh man, I was going to vote for myself. I'm going to vote for Ali because that Overwatch comment made my day. I love how much she was passionate about Overwatch 2 sucking, because I can relate.
Yeah, fuck that game. Sinjin, what about you?
Animositas, if he can get out of the orgy party that he's in right now. I think, honestly, he's one of the most articulate guys I've ever heard speak. And he always speaks with such insight. I'm just always impressed.
Annie, who's your pick?
Sorry, I'm in the middle of an orgy here. I can't give a vote at the moment. No, I'm gonna go with Sinjin. I got to return the love. The spicy takes that are also absolutely real. I love every week. I'm gonna give a special second shout out though. Even though he's not likely going to be able to articulate his position and his project, Dub's Closet is my second vote for Go to the Week today.
Knock, who's your vote?
I'm voting for Ali in part for the Overwatch 2 comment, but really because during the introductions, sorry, I'm also in this fucking ridiculousness. During the introductions, she came out of her room and looked at me and went, was I supposed to say something after Sam gave me my intro? And I've just been laughing about that since the beginning of the show. So, Ali's MVP.
All right, Charlie, who's your vote?
I gotta go with Knock, my man.
Short and sweet.
Ali. Ali, who are you voting for?
All right, I'm voting for the closet man. I'm going for Dub in the closet. That was just pretty hilarious. So thanks for all your comments.
Dub, who's your vote for?
He's playing I think he's playing a game, so he doesn't get a vote.
He's playing a game with all you guys that are in the closet together. Oh, I wish I could have been there.
For sure, Sinjin, we missed
Another
you,
sausage party, Web3
You know
gathering. Woo-hoo!
Imagine Dub actually wins for 1 week and he's too busy playing a game and misses his opportunity.
Peyton, who's your pick, brother?
Just for that, Annie, I vote Dub as well. So he's not going to be able to claim his prize. That's freaking hilarious.
Zen for Wilder World, who do you think?
I vote for you, brother. Sam, I think, someone should bring it back to you, man.
Appreciate you, man. Andy from Stardust, what about you, bro?
As much as I want to vote for a closet guy, Closet Man, which is a great nickname, I gotta give it to Charlie for networking with me outside gang, hashtag.
All right, Allie wins MVP of the week. Allie, I know Alchemy is launching some amazing stuff. You got 60 seconds of FaceTime. Plug whatever you want, sis.
Oh shit. Okay, yes. Lunatics. If you want to know more about the Shrapnel world and its characters, look out for that. It's coming really soon. It's really cool. It's a little mini game that you can play in Discord, and I'm really proud of what the team's put together. So definitely look out for that. What else? Love Parallel. Shout out to Parallel. I'm a Parallel stan. Got a shout out every single time. Still playing a ton of that. And lastly, I hate to be this person, but is this number 69? Your Gamified number 69? I think we need a collective nice in the chat from everyone here, just for your 69th episode.
Thank you, Allie.
That's all I got.
We went
Thanks for having me on.
almost 2 full hours without mentioning it, trying our best to be mature. I didn't expect Allie to break the streak, but I do appreciate it. Somebody had to do it. Lems, over to you.
I was really surprised the Titan of Taboo didn't mention it the whole show. I was waiting here, expecting him to say something, and how did we get to the last 10 minutes before it gets mentioned?
Actually, I've gone in shit for mentioning 69. Like, I was on this one conference call with the board, and the number was like whatever, like 190, 69, whatever, like that, right? Or like whatever, like, and then at the last moment, I like emphasized, oh yeah, 6'9", in this board conference call, and then the CFO repeated the number like how it should have been actually, spoken, not that way. So I got trauma from that. Yeah, I'm trying to be a more mature, older individual in my near 50 age. Yeah, but
Gutless
anyways,
wanker.
oh yeah, totally.
I hate new mature Sinjin. Bring back the degenerate Titan of Taboo. That's going to do it for our show today. Apologies for the chaos, as sometimes these live episodes are, but do appreciate everybody who came by the house, gave us some of your time. I know there's a ton to do with these conferences, and the fact that you spend it with us means the world to me. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Gamified is always locked in for number 70. Holy moly. Can't wait to see you guys there. Big shout out to all the panelists. Thanks, guys.